Do you think Pashinyan is in a position to be successful in his efforts to realize this velvet revolution? And what are your thoughts about the overall developments in Armenia?
Well, that's a good question, Barton. First of all, thank you for having me on the show. This velvet revolution, I think, is ongoing. There's a lot of moving parts, and I'm just going to try to analyze it as, well, the facts that we know now at hand. It's a very interesting thing. What they identified, all the problems that you've mentioned: 1, corruption; 2, nepotism; 3, electoral integrity; 4, the poverty, the disparity between rich and poor is grotesque in Armenia. So Pashinyan correctly identified the issues. The questions that I have right now is, and if he was sitting here today, what is your agenda moving forward? Mm-hmm. Because a lot of the people in Armenia that are not protesters but are residents of Armenia have questions. Where are you moving this government? What is your agenda? Are you going to nationalize industry? Are you going to prosecute those that are engaged in corruption? You can't be half pregnant. If they were wrong, if they were engaging in illegal acts, you need an independent prosecution of anyone. No one's above the law. And if it says Sarkisian, and you could prove evidence beyond a reasonable doubt, or whatever the standard is in Armenia, then you need to claw back any ill-gotten proceeds or monies that belong to the Armenian treasury. You can't just talk the talk on the streets. That's easy. Mm-hmm. Governance is very hard. So if he's going to do it, he's going to have to look at everything. There's going to be a wide range investigation and claw back all the money that's been taken from the Armenian treasury. So my only advice to them, and not that anybody's asking, my unsolicited advice is, if you're going to do this, you have to do this all the way. You cannot give anyone immunity, because corruption will continue unless there's penalties, whether it's criminal or civil, things of that nature.
Martin, can he do it? That's a question. Can he do what you think he should do?
He's going to have an enormous amount of resistance. There's going to be 2 possibilities, in my opinion. Now I'm being a political analyst. I'm not on either side, by the way. I'm just looking at the things that's going on. 1, does he have the political capital to do it? Yes. It appears he does. He's got the youth, which is always very important. He's got the energy. He's got the population. We don't know how much of the population. There's still people at home that were not out protesting. There's always a quiet majority, and no one ever talks about them. So can he do it? The answer is yes. Should he do it? That's a different question. 3, he's got to always be sensitive of the fact that Armenia is in the most delicate situation from a national security standpoint. Everybody's watching him. Russia has made a very interesting declaration. We do not want to get involved in the internal affairs of Armenia, which was respectful. But everybody's watching. The regional aspect of it cannot be ignored. What he does is going to have ramifications in that regional area. So he better think twice about it.
When you speak about Armenia being in a very delicate position, we always speak about Russian influence and Western influence. What is your take of that?
Well, the Pentagon is monitoring the situation on the ground. I know the Kremlin's watching the situation on the ground. And all the former Soviet republics are watching what's going on in Armenia today. Because this could be an Eastern European Arab Spring, the way I describe it. So everybody's watching, and they're going to look for what this individual is going to do. The reality is he could do a lot of wide-ranging things. He can try to nationalize industry. He can have a very highly progressive tax and then enforce it. He can redistribute wealth. There's a lot of things he can do that the people want. The expectations of the people on the streets is not business as usual. They want dramatic and drastic change. Come along with that is people are going to get hurt. This velvet revolution, I think it's a premature statement. I don't think it's so velvet yet. There could be serious bloodshed. I hope it doesn't. I pray it doesn't. But the resistance and leaving the claws of power is not easy. You got to take it. And how do you do that? it's like threading a needle. It's extremely hard, and what I care about is the best interest of the people of Armenia.
You know, many people question, I too question, what is the role of the Armenians in the diaspora? What can you tell us about, what do you think is the role of the Armenians in the diaspora?
Well, I've always said this, and I've always will say this. The talent, the intelligence, the humility of the diaspora is always omnipresent. I am a member of the diaspora. I think we have amazing organizations here in Washington, D.C., and in Los Angeles, in America, and all around the world. The diaspora matters. They care about their homeland. They send money to their homeland. They take care of their relatives in the homeland. And I think that the diaspora should have a very vital role in this. This administration and Kocharyan's administration has always said, give us money, but don't give us advice. Well, I think that policy should be over with. I think if this individual is going to succeed as a new prime minister, he better reach out to the diaspora and ask for assistance, help, and competence, because there's so much talent in the diaspora. And their interest is the love of country. Not all of them, but most of them. And they should be touched and reached out for help, because I don't think he doesn't have a team around him, and he hasn't expressed an agenda. I don't know if that's because he's smart or he doesn't have an agenda, but you need to set forward an agenda. It's easy to campaign and identify what the problems is, but what are your solutions? Because that's governance. People get hurt when you extend your solutions. And who are you going to hurt in society? Someone's going to get hurt. Corruption is the greatest cancer in Armenia.
But how can you control it?
You can control it.
You can?
Yes.
How?
For example, official misconduct has to be prosecuted. There should be an inspector general in Armenia to look and be an oversight committee to watch out for corruption in government. And they should execute the right of the prosecutors should be able to look into public corruption and prosecute them, because that's how you stop corruption. When you make the penalties so high, in China it's death. Summarily, I'm not suggesting that. But if you make the penalties of corruption so high, you reduce it. You can never eradicate it. People like corruption on a small level.
Let me interrupt you. You need an independent judiciary.
Absolutely.
Which we don't have. We haven't had that.
No, we have nepotism.
So how can you come up with independent judiciary?
You absolutely have to make reforms. You need a judiciary that's not connected to a political party or a government. You need that judiciary to be the final voice, like we have here in America. The Supreme Court is the final word. But we need to keep them independent and insulated from politics. They really need to be one end. We need a Department of Justice to basically not be afraid to go after people who are engaging in kleptocrats. People are stealing from the treasury of Armenia. You can't sustain that over a long period of time. Corruption is a cancer, and national security is an extremely important issue, but if you can't mitigate the corruption, not eradicate it, that's not going to happen. Every country in the world has got corruption. But if you can mitigate the corruption through an independent judiciary, like you said, and a prosecution that's not afraid to prosecute, and say these are the penalties. Not only are we going to send you to jail, we're going to take your money, we're going to freeze your bank accounts wherever they are in the world. They need to set up that type of infrastructure to set the tone that no one's above the law, and people need to go to jail.
How important is the constitution of the country, which many people think should be revised?
Constitutions are made to be revised. We have amendments here in the United States, and extremely important amendments. It has to be revised, but the Constitution is only as good as people want to follow it. Now, you asked me if I was this individual, Nicole. One thing he has to do is follow the rule of law, and it's a Constitution that's extremely important. If he doesn't follow the Constitution, then he himself could be accused of being corrupt. You got to follow the Constitution, and you got to be clever enough as a politician. You can do it, but you got to follow the Constitution and have electoral integrity. And there could be international monitors to make sure that those elections are free, fair, and transparent. which is what he's been asking for. And that's not an unreasonable request. That's how you have a democracy. So he's got a lot to do, but he needs the help of the diaspora. I think that's one solution out there, and the diaspora should be there helping him out. And also building a bridge between the existing administration and all the intelligence and valuable military knowledge that they have, and transition in a smooth way, because if they don't do that, we could have a serious problem on our hands, larger than we even think about. We have our enemies watching very closely, and we need a smooth transition. We need them to be Armenians first, partisans second. That's my thoughts.